I'm Caris Rook and I'm Head of Music here. The A-level music course is 3 components. One is performance, the second is composing, and the third is appraising music, looking at history and analysis of music. The performance aspect involves a final performance at the end of the first and second year. The first year is 6 to 8 minutes of solo performance, and the second is 10 to 12 minutes. In the second year. For composition, we look at 2 different compositions. One is a completely free composition. It can be in any style, so from heavy metal through to folk. And the second composition is a set brief composition, and that's set by the board, and that has to be in a Western classical tradition. The third unit is appraising music, and we look at a range of different music from Western classical through to rock and pop music. Our main set work is the Haydn Symphony 104, and we look at movements 1 and 2 in the first year and 3 and 4 in the second, building to a further analysis of the Mendelssohn Symphony in the second year. The rock and pop component, we look at a range of different rock and pop music from 1960 through to the present day, looking at psychedelic rock in the 60s, soul and funk and disco from the 60s to the 70s, looking at progressive rock, punk rock, and then through into reggae and ska of the 80s, and electronic dance music of the 90s as well. So an average day for a music student can vary from day to day depending on which topic we're looking at. A performance on the course can be in this room actually, rehearsals, kind of regular one-to-one coaching from myself and from instrumental teachers as well. It could be that we're in the classroom on a particular day looking at composition and working on the Sibelius software. Some students choose to use the Logic Pro software, but either way our compositions end up being a score and a final recording. And those are the types of things that we work on in the classroom. We also analyse music, so that can be anything from score analysis in the classroom and looking at how a piece of music is built and discussing that together, to just listening to rock and pop music and thinking about orally how a track is built as well. So our music students tend to study a multitude of different courses while they're at college. Sometimes music students actually study a variety of different music courses. So from the A-level music to the production course, music technology goes really well alongside A-level music and the BTEC music course as well. Lots of A-level music students in particular study languages. That works really well with music. Equally, we have a lot of A-level music students that study psychology, maths, sciences, and other performing arts as well, such as dance. So the entry requirements for A-level music are mostly GCSE music, typically a grade 6 or above. However, if you haven't studied GCSE music at school, you can enter and do the A-level course with at least a grade 5 standard in your instrument. That's a level of playing, and we like to have grade 5 theory as well, although that's not necessarily an absolute requirement. So I also teach on the BTEC Music Performance course. It differs to the A-level course in that the A-level is quite an academic course. The BTEC Music course is a bit more practical, and whilst we are in the classroom and looking at a range of different analysis and rock and pop music from 1960 to the present day, we also work in the studio and actually rehearse and perform in those genres as well. So the main 3 units that we would study in the first year on the BTEC course is solo and ensemble performance. So in the first year you would produce a solo performance of 3 contrasting pieces and an ensemble performance that would include about 4 to 5 performances in a group of a range of different rock and pop styles. The second unit is called Pop Music in Practice, and that involves a lot of analysis in the classroom about different types of rock and pop music. And a typical project on that unit would involve students being in the classroom, learning about the rock and roll genre, We would learn about how it's built, all the different components of that style, and then we would put students into groups. So we'd put a drummer with a singer, with a couple of guitarists, maybe a keys player, and they would go off after several lessons on the rock and roll topic and go and rehearse and produce an original track in the rock and roll style. That would take a couple of weeks, and then we would come back and actually perform that style, that particular track to each other, and we would think about the musical components in that track. Were they successful in producing a rock and roll performance? And so the whole project is marked on your ability to rehearse together in a group, to then produce something that's an original composition, to bring that back and actually perform it, and then to write a written project on the rock and roll topic. The third and final unit in the first year will be on the sound and music industry, and that's where we look at a range of different job roles and areas within the music industry. We look at how it's built, we look at contracts and royalties and what is a good contract and what's a bad one, and we also look at setting up a new product or service within the music industry. So the entry requirements for the BTEC are less than the A-level, purely because there's no examining components on the BTEC at the moment. So we look at roughly about a grade 3 standard of playing, and ideally we like our students to be able to play a little bit of, a few different instruments, so guitar, drums, keys, vocals, etc. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into our A-level and BTEC music performance courses. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to get in contact with us.